Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Liverpool transfer show on Football Talk Podcast. My name is Ozzy, and I'm your host for this evening. A lot of rumors seem to be heating up, especially when it comes to potential striker options for Liverpool, as well as other teams in the Premier League, which I guess would have a domino effect into what is happening right now. So, what we'll do today, we will talk about some of the rumors. The big one, of course, is Liverpool apparently been in talks with Jean-Philippe Mateta, of course, the Crystal Palace striker. Plus, there's other rumors circulating in regards to Newcastle signing Ekitike. Does that mean Liverpool have a free pass to try and sign Alexander Isak? We'll discuss this during the show. So let's start with the opening rumor, and that is Mateta from Crystal Palace. Now, my thoughts on the news sort of breaking today that we are currently in talks with his agent definitely caught me by surprise. He's a player I do like. I do rate him. I think he's a very interesting profile. He'll bring something different to our team if he was to join us. He's very, very strong on and off the ball. Has a great range of shooting, left foot, right foot, strong in the air as well. Uh, Very, very difficult to defend against. So he'll definitely bring that physical presence that we've lacked, I believe, in terms of our front line. But in terms of the profile, he's not a typical FSG signing. He's 28 years of age, but maybe this is a stopgap signing, or maybe this is something that we're having to make due to the passing of Jota, where we don't have a lot of strikers in our squad. Darwin Nunez's future is still a little bit uncertain, still a bit up in the air. So maybe Liverpool have to look at potential options that will sort of guarantee an impact of a player. So, for example, with Mateta, we know he's Premier League proven. He's done it for Crystal Palace for a number of years now. He also played for Fulham back in the day. So he's definitely a player that is, you know, has the tools to do well in the Premier League. And that's what you really want when you sign your new striker. So it's going to be very interesting in terms of what happens with Mateta. But in regards to this rumor, the first thought I had was, is he being signed as our first choice striker, or is he going to be signed as our second choice striker? Some sources are saying that he's a stopgap if Isak is not available this summer. So the example would be that we sign Mateta this summer, and then next summer we'll test the waters and try and get Isak over the line. Now, call me optimistic. I actually don't think that is the case. I believe that we're strongly in the pursuit of signing Isak, and I believe he will join Liverpool this summer as our main striker. And the reason I have that sort of vibe or that sort of feeling right now is because Newcastle are in strong negotiations with Frankfurt to sign Hugo Ekitike for around £70 million. Newcastle have already spent around 85 million on James Trossard, the goalkeeper, Trossard Trafford, sorry, and Elanga, who they've just signed from Nottingham Forest for 55 million. So if they were to sign Ekitike for about 70 million, let's say that is the final fee, that's around 145 million pounds. Can Newcastle move like that in terms of acquiring new players but not making any sales? I don't think so. They will definitely have some PSR issues if that was the case. So I strongly believe that Newcastle are trying to sign Ekitike. So he's the first player that comes through the door, and he is being signed to replace Isak. I can't see Newcastle keeping both Isak and signing Ekitike. Ornstein has tweeted saying that that's the plan, that they want both strikers to play with each other. I don't think that is the case. It doesn't make sense for a number of reasons. The first reason is financially. The club can't attain a player of that value in terms of 70 million pounds, but then not really have him in the starting lineup because I don't think they'll play with two up top. That's not a formation that they play with. And also, Ekitike and Alexander Isak are very, very similar in terms of style of play. So it's not sort of a position where both strikers will play alongside each other. I don't think that would be the case. Um, I actually believe Ekitike is like a younger version of Isak. That's the kind of style he has in terms of how they play. Very similar build, very similar way of thinking in terms of attacking the left channels. That's normally both of their traits to do that during the game. So for me, it wouldn't even make sense for that to happen. Another option could be where one player ends up being played out of position. So Ekitike could be played on the left wing. It's not his favorite role. He did play that role quite a lot during his younger days, but I believe that he wants to be a number nine. That's his sole position. That's the position he's trying to get into the French national team, and that's his dream right now. France aren't blessed with amazing strikers right now. Of course, you've got Mbappe, but Mbappe's favorite position is to play as a wide forward. So that number nine position for France up for grabs. You've got the likes of Thuram, you've got Colomwani. So if Ekitike performs well next season, he's definitely in a strong position to be France's number one. So for me, it doesn't make sense to have both Ekitike and Isak, and that's why I truly believe that there's something happening in the back. I genuinely believe that we've had some sort of discussions with Newcastle in regards to Isak, and I believe Isak has communicated to the club that he wants to join Liverpool, and because of that, Newcastle have gone on the stance where they want to sign his replacement first, and then Isak will then part ways and then move over to Liverpool. That's one way of appeasing the fans. If they were to sell Isak first and then sign Ekitike, it might not be the same sort of reaction. So the right now the dice is rolling for them because they've signed Trafford, their goalkeeper. They've signed Elanga, and if they sign Ekitike, they're signing good players. And if they have to sell Isak, it will make logical sense to a Newcastle fan because they've spent about 145 million. They need to bring that back to the club in some shape or form. So I think they're trying to appease the fans. And let's not forget, Ekitike was actually Newcastle's prime target when they were bought by the Saudis. That was the main striker they wanted to sign, and I believe a deal was actually agreed, but Ekitike ended up joining Paris Saint-Germain instead. So they've always had a liking towards Ekitike, so they're quite familiar with the player. So I'm not too surprised, that he's been currently linked as well. But back to the main topic, and that is Mateta. Um, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to do a little comparison between Mateta, Darwin Núñez, Isak and Ekitike and see how all three of these strikers performed last season, and if there's sort of any sort of traits or characteristics that we feel like, maybe Ekitike is better than we think he is, and maybe there's a reason why we're going for the Crystal Palace striker. So just going to review some of the stats here. So in terms of games, Mateta wins that one, I guess. He played 37 games last year. And by the way, all of these stats are just for the league. So we haven't combined all competitions. I thought let's just go for league form in this scenario. And in terms of the minutes, funny enough, Isak has the most minutes. So he played less games than Mateta, but he's played over 2,769 minutes. And that is one of the concerns from some Liverpool fans is that he's very much injury prone. So that's a concern, of us spending so much money on a striker that's got a bit of a history with picking up little injuries here and there. You know, Players do get injured. We've just been very fortunate over the years where you've had the likes of Salah and Van Dijk who very rarely get injured. So we've been spoiled in that regards. But players do pick up little niggles here and there. So for me, uh, he's not different. I don't feel like he's an injury prone striker. I think that's a very strong sort of assessment of him. I don't think he's injury prone. He does pick up injuries here and there, but it'll be little muscle strains here and there, which happens when you play a magnitude of games or you're playing at a certain level and he plays with high intensity, he's very quick on and off the ball. So of course that will have some sort of toll on his body. So for me, based on these stats, he's played more minutes than all the other strikers um in comparison here. So he wins that tally. Now in terms of shots, excluding blocks, so the highest tally is actually Ekitike, which is very interesting. But you got to put context in terms of these statistics. He was playing alongside Mamouche, so he was playing in a two-man attack. So with that, you tend to get more chances around the box. But close second will probably be Isak there. Darwin Núñez, not a lot of shots, but of course Darwin Núñez didn't start as many games last season, and Ekitike had 53, so not bad. One impressive one for me is the shot accuracy, and it goes to Ekitike. He's at 2% higher than Isak. You've got Ekitike on 55%, then you've got Darwin's 46. So for me, that's a huge upgrade right there. If Isak for some reason wasn't available and we had to sign another striker, he's an upgrade in terms of that accuracy stat there. For me, that's something that Darwin is lacks. He lacks that composure, that sort of ice cold presence in front of goal, and I don't think his shooting is as accurate as it should be with Mateta. You've got 16% increase there in terms of accuracy. So for me, that's a huge lift there. In terms of shots on target, obviously we've got to take in terms of context of what teams they play for. Ekatike has the highest is 48. Uh, Isak with 46. Darwin Núñez 13. That's very, very low. And shots on target for Mateta is 33, which is a good stat. In terms of shots off target, not a great stat there, unfortunately. Um, it goes to Darwin Núñez, but even though it says 24 Mateta, so that might be an oh no, sorry. So because it's the lower number, isn't it? So yeah, so he's got the least shots off target, and in terms of shots blocked, that goes to Ekitike. Shots from set pieces, surprised that Mateta hasn't got anything there. Um, but Isak has 3 penalties taken, so Mateta has taken 2 penalties, um, and Isak generally the main penalty take at Newcastle took 4. Hitting the woodwork, Ekitika's hit the most with 5 times there. Goals in terms of the league last season, Mateta scored 14 goals, which is a decent stat. Darwin has only scored 5. Um, Alexander Isak scored 23, and Ekitike scored 15. So not bad tally from the French striker there. And passing attempt, just to show you in terms of the all-round game, Isak had the higher ratio. Then it was Ekitike, which is no surprise. Both players are very, very good on the ball, great link-up strikers. So not surprised that Ekitike's got high numbers there. Then you've got Mateta, and then you've got Darwin Núñez with the lower tally there. So that's just a small comparison in terms of the 4 strikers and how they performed last season. In terms of my verdict on this one, actually, do you know what? Before we even move on to my verdict, we may have to address something, and that is Darwin Núñez. Now, the current rumor is that Darwin uh, Núñez's move, I should say, to Napoli has been called off due to a gap between both clubs' valuation of the player. Now, whether Napoli return or not remains to be seen. It could be where they've been having a long period of negotiations and there hasn't been any progress made, and therefore they've said we're not interested anymore, and we're going to move on to other targets. So in that case, that means that deal's out the window, and we have to try and find another suitor. But the fee is what we want. We want around £50 million. That's the kind of range we want for Darwin Núñez. Of course, Saudi would offer a lot more, but I don't think the player wants to move on to Saudi. So my question is for the chat. And if you're watching a replay, feel free to drop a comment as well. What should we do in regards to Darwin Núñez? Should we keep him for one more year, or should we try and find him a suitor so he can depart from the club this summer? With Jota passing away, it's a difficult one because we don't know in terms of the extent of what sort of striker we'd get. And I'll be honest with you, the striker market is not the best market, and it hasn't been for a long, long time. But right now, you're seeing the dominoes falling. Right now, you're seeing Arsenal trying to sign Gyökeres. That's going to be completed very soon. Osimhen, a strong target for many clubs in the Premier League. He looks like he's off to Galatasaray. Ekitike looks like he's on the verge of signing for Newcastle. Sesko is the one that's probably going to remain at Red Bull Leipzig. Fortunately, he's been linked with us as well, which I'll elaborate on later in the show. He's the only one available. And then you've got Isak, where you've got someone playing at a very high level. But it only looks like there's one club that will try and go for him at the minute, and that is Liverpool. So it's one of those ones where we're going for a very high target in Alexander Isak, but if that doesn't happen, then maybe it's Sesko that ends up being the alternative. For me, that's not an option. I would rather go for a stopgap striker. So for me, that's what Ekitike brings to the table. So I would be pleased with the signing of Ekitike. Still have some reservations in terms of if he fits with the way we play and would he suit the dynamics of the team. I don't want it to be another Benteke 2.0. I don't want it to be that kind of scenario because when we signed Benteke from Aston Villa, he was phenomenal. Honestly, unplayable at times. I remember Skirtle having nightmares playing against Benteke. So when Benteke joined us, I think Skirtle was probably one of the most relieved players all around the squad because he had some tough battles against the Belgian striker. But I do feel like Mateta would be a handful for us. And look, if we were to go on and sign an Isak and have Mateta, as his backup or his his cover, I think that's double trouble right there. Honestly, I think that is a great pair of strikers to have in your squad. And I feel like there might be even games where, if we want to switch up a formation, we want to play with two up top. I think Isak and Mateta can play alongside each other. They are quite similar in terms of being very adventurous and being ball carriers as well. But Isak likes to attack the channels at times. So it could work. If we're trying to get a goal or we're trailing in the match. So for me, Mateta, even if he came in as a backup, he will still get a lot of minutes in a Liverpool shirt next season. So for me, I think Mateta would be a great signing. In terms of his valuation, I think the report is that Crystal Palace want between 43 to 52 million. Um, I think around that 40 million mark makes sense. I think that would be a smart bit of business. Of course, we want to sign another Crystal Palace player in Mark Gay. So hopefully, Crystal Palace don't play hardball and try not to get any deals for us over the line. We might end up taking both players from them, which they might not be very pleased about because it's probably one of the two best players in their squads. But I think Mateta would be a fantastic signing for us. I think he has all the ability. If he was brought in as the first choice, it will be slightly underwhelming for me because I feel like we should have more quality in our squad. But then that would also mean who is our backup striker. If Mateta is first choice, let's say we can't get Isak for whatever reason, and Mateta ends up being our number one striker. Do we keep Darwin Núñez or do we sign another backup striker? For me, keeping Darwin Núñez, it doesn't give me a lot of confidence going into the new season. Mateta, I know what he brings to the table, but Núñez as a backup, unfortunately, I've seen enough to have an opinion. I don't think he will improve from his last 3 years at the club. So I think it's best for him and for everyone affiliated for Darwin Núñez to leave. But he could be an option for us next season. So we don't know at this stage. So only time will tell. But my verdict is that I think Mateta would be a good signing, but I think he would be the perfect second choice striker. First choice, I'd be content with it, but I'd still find it slightly underwhelming because of the business we've done already so far. We've signed some real quality young players in this window. So that would be my sort of inkling or my initial thoughts if Mateta came in as first choice. If we were to get Isak and Mateta, yeah, we're cooking. We really are. So let's see what happens. I honestly, I don't want to sound like I'm being very, very optimistic here, but I genuinely believe there's something within this sort of rumor of um, Isak being a primary target for us. If Newcastle are signing Ekitike, I don't think they're signing him to be his strike partner. He's literally being signed as his replacement. It's just like they're doing it the other way around. They're actually buying the replacement first before um, the striker leaves, and I feel like that's only because Liverpool have shown a strong interest in the player, and they probably allowed Newcastle to find their replacement first, and then we make that official bid and try and get the ball rolling with the negotiations. So who knows? Fingers crossed that is the case. But I am sure we will hear further news. The Ekitike one broke today, so I'm sure there'll be some further updates tomorrow. We might even get further news about Liverpool placing the bid for Isak. So whenever that happens, rest assured that there will be a show on Football Talk Podcast. Just got a comment here from Jojo. Big up Jojo. He says Mateta is good. I agree. I think he would be a good signing. So I would be quite pleased if Mateta joined Liverpool this summer. But I also think we sign another striker. We need to get another striker anyway, in my opinion. If Nunes stays, then I guess it's just one striker that comes through the door. But I really hope that Liverpool can think with a sort of calculated process and try and sign two adequate strikers. It's one of those things where Mateta makes the most sense because he's Premier League proven. So the settling in period is not going to be a thing. Of course, playing with a new team, there will be a different change for him in terms of building relationships with players on the pitch, but that will come with time. But in terms of getting accustomed to playing in England or in the Premier League, he's been doing it for a few years now, so he knows how it goes in the Premier League. So for me, if we sign Isak and Mateta, that's a dream scenario there, honestly. And add Gay into that mix, yeah, we're cooking. So fingers crossed in terms of what happens, but I'm sure we'll get some further developments later on this week. Now, moving on to the next rumor, and that is Benjamin Sesko. So the rumor yesterday was that Benjamin Sesko started liking posts and started following Liverpool football Instagram account, I think it was. And people just automatically thought, oh, there's something happening in the background because he's liking our post and like following the Liverpool profile and all that sort of stuff. And then we also got some sources suggesting that his agent has been in touch with Liverpool to try and get his client to join the Reds. Now, for me, that sounds like desperation from the agent because he probably thought his client will end up getting a move this summer, and that, of course, equals to a big paycheck or big commission for the agent. At the minute, it doesn't look like that's going to be the case because the strongest team that was showing interest for Sesko was Arsenal, but they've gone on to pursue another target, and that is Victor Gyökeres, who's going to join the club very, very soon. So they won't be in the market for another striker. A lot of fans probably said Chelsea would have been a team, but I'll be honest with you, they've hit the masterstroke in signing João Pedro, of course, a target of Liverpool, but the way he's just settled in so quickly at the club, he looks like a fantastic signing. And I'm going based off, his appearances in the Club World Cup even though I feel like the competition had preseason vibes, he was still playing against good teams. You know, the match yesterday against PSG was fantastic in that fixture. Against Fluminense, you know, scored a couple of goals, scored a lovely goal yesterday as well. So for me, he's been a very, very shrewd and smart signing. Only £50 million as well, which is crazy because that is literally peanuts in this day and age. So for me, that's a very smart signing from Chelsea. So I doubt they'll be in the market for another striker. They've already got a second striker in Liam Delap, and they've still got Jackson on the cards as well. So they won't be signing a new striker anytime soon, in my opinion. And then Osimhen, as I mentioned, he's off to Galatasaray. Ekitike looks like he's on the verge of joining Newcastle. So there aren't many options. Alvarez is staying at Atletico. Isak looks like, you know, he could be staying at Newcastle or he could be coming to Liverpool. That seems to be the notion, because I believe Liverpool are the only team that are showing a strong interest in acquiring his services. So I'm hoping there is some truth to that rumor, and the Benjamin Sesko news is paper talk. And I do believe it is, not because that's what I want it to be. You know, if the agent is contacting clubs to get a move for his client, that's normally not a good sign. Because we have registered interest in the striker and we have scouted him over the years, but maybe we just don't think he fits the bill. So I don't see there being any truth to rumor. However, let's say Isak's not available, or for some reason Mateta doesn't want to leave Crystal Palace. Unfortunately, Sesko ends up being a realistic option for us. My only issue, well, not only issue, one of my big issues with the Sesko deal would be the fee. The fee is going to cost us around 80, 90 million pounds. He's not worth it at all. Crazy statement I'm about to say, but I would rather keep Darwin Núñez than sign Benjamin Sesko. I know Sesko's younger and his ceiling, I guess, is maybe on the higher side, but I don't feel like he's an upgrade on Darwin Núñez. And for me, if we're going to sell a player, it needs to be where that player is upgraded in terms of quality in the squad. So for me, he's not an upgrade to Darwin Núñez. So therefore, why sell him if that's the replacement that we're looking at? So I don't know. I don't think there is any truth to this rumor. I believe that it's just all paper talk and it's his agent trying to engineer a move for his client. So hopefully this rumor doesn't resurface, but until he doesn't move club, I'm sure Liverpool will be mentioned in the mix at some point this window. Now moving on to the next rumor, and that is Ben Doak. Now Ben Doak has been linked with a number of clubs in this current window. He's been linked with moves to Crystal Palace, ironically, and there's other teams that have shown interest. He's been getting interest from the Bundesliga as well. But today we've heard that Nottingham Forest are showing strong interest, or they've joined the race in order to get the signature of Ben Doak. Um, they've just made a sale in terms of Anthony Elanga moving over to Newcastle, so they need to find a replacement for that right wing position. I actually think it would be a smart signing from them because you've got a player who's young, who's hungry, who's very quick and tenacious on that right wing. He's not quite like Lang because Langa's like both footed, but I always feel like he's the way he plays. Feel like he's a left footed player, but he's one of those players that's very talented and can hit the ball with both feet. And so he brings that sort of similarity in terms of being very dynamic, very rapid on the wings, out and out winger. So he's not just an inside forward type player, traditional out and out wingers. I think that will suit the way they play. And with Chris Wood in the team, you're going to expect service from your wingers. And Bintok definitely has that in his locker. Great crossing ability, whether it's a short ball or a long cross from the wings, he has that in his locker. So I feel like this could be something that has a bit of legs. He's definitely on the move, in my opinion. Big question is, should Liverpool sell him or should we loan him out? I believe we'll probably end up selling him just because he's got a bit of value to his name right now. He's had a good loan spell at Middlesbrough last season, and because of that impact, there's a lot of Premier League clubs after his signature. So you've got the likes of Everton that want to sign him. Now Forest are in the mix, and I'm sure there'll be other teams registering their interest in the Scottish winger as well. So for me, I think a move to Forest would be good. But in terms of the valuation, I'm expecting 30 million upwards. I wouldn't expect anything less. I think 30 million is a true valuation for the young player there. So I think he'll end up leaving. Will he end up going to Forest? I'm not too sure. I think it's a good fit if he does go there. But I feel like Forest might have other targets in mind. But we'll find out in due course. But from a Liverpool point of view, it would make sense to sell him. But even if he stayed, it wouldn't be a crazy scenario because you end up having a direct replacement, or should I say, a direct backup for that right wing position. And then you have Gakpo, Luis Diaz on the left hand side. Got Darwin Núñez up top, and then you've got Szoboszlai, Florian Wirtz in your number 10 role. So the options are definitely good in that regards. So let's see what happens with Ben Doak. I do believe that he will be on the move this summer. What club he joins, I can't quite call it, but Forest would definitely be a good option for the young player. Now, in terms of the next rumour, West Ham have been linked with a double swoop for our players of uh, English nationality, I guess, because they just won the Euros, and that is Harvey Elliott and Tyler Morton. Now, my thoughts on the rumour, it makes sense. I think the Tyler Morton one is an interesting one because he's just returned from injury, and of course, he's had a great impact for the England under 21s. So, because of that, I think that's helped maintain his stock a little bit more because he was inactive last season for Liverpool. Maybe it would have declined based on that, but he's always held good interest, I would say, across Europe. Bayer Leverkusen were very close to signing him last summer, but Liverpool weren't willing to sell at the time. So maybe they'll be in the market for him again. You've got West Ham, who I think would actually be a good fit for Tyler Morton. Whether he's first choice, I don't think he would be, but he would be a great option off the bench from for West Ham. And I think in terms of Harvey Elliott, that's going to be an interesting one because they've just sold one of their star players, and that is Mohamed Kudus to Tottenham Hotspurs. So they need to find a like for like replacement, and Harvey Elliott can definitely play that right wing role. I know a lot of fans don't believe he's the best player for that position because he lacks that burst of speed when he's on the ball, but I think he's very technical, has a decent speed on him, but I think his creativity is what you know adds value to his game, in my opinion. So for me, he'd be a good signing. They sold Kudus for about 50 million. We'd probably want around the same kind of valuation for Harvey Elliott as well. So that's going to be interesting because with Harvey Elliott, we all expected him to leave, but unfortunately, due to Josh's passing, it's not a all done conclusion, in my opinion. So I will be doing a show this week analyzing Elliott's position. Should we keep him or should we sell him? So make sure to be lookout for that show. In terms of Tyler Morton, I think his time is the right time to leave the club. He's not going to get much game time at Liverpool. He was pretty much very rarely used. I think he was used in the FA Cup ties, and that was basically, and a couple of Carabao fixtures as well. Other than that, he didn't really make any Premier League appearances. So for me, it's the right time to sell Tyler Morton going forward. And the final rumor, I've probably mentioned this a number of times in the last few days and weeks because it's the same news or same rumor that's going round and round in terms of the social media space, and that is Ibu Konate. Today we're hearing that Real Madrid want to try and sign Konate on a free transfer for next summer, and some sources are suggesting that Konate is very much you know, head on to make that move. He's made his decision and he wants to move on and join Real Madrid in the future. Of course, you got to take these stories and these rumors with a pinch of salt. But I'm not getting a good feeling about this move, to be honest with you. There's been nothing positive to come out from Konate's camp in terms of that they want to stay or they want to negotiate a new contract. It just feels like this Real Madrid PR machine is on a roll right now, and I do believe that they've probably, spoken to Konate behind the scenes, made him promises about huge sign-on fees alongside his agent. So, you know, I would not be surprised if that happens. But from a Liverpool point of view, if that is the case where we've got the inkling that he wants to leave, we need to try and sell him this summer. I know some fans will disagree and say, well, look, if we were to sell him, the squad is weakened. But I don't really want a player to stay at the club when he knows he's going to leave 12 months down the line. You know, Trent, I think, is definitely stronger so long as well. And unfortunately, we saw it probably later than planned, even though I think most of us fans did think that Trent will end up leaving Liverpool and joining Real Madrid. It's just that we got little sigh of hopes during the season and thought maybe he'll decide to stay on board, but of course that never happened. So with Ibu, I don't know. I'm just getting that vibe that I don't think he'll end up staying, and unfortunately, I don't think we'll even end up selling him this summer. If it was down to me, I would definitely sell him, try and get about 30, 40 million for him, reinvest that into the squad, maybe sign Gahey, and then sign another centre back on top to complete the centre back options within our squad. So that would be the way I would conduct business there. Whether that happens or not remains to be seen, but we will soon find out because if he doesn't sign a new contract by the end of this window, I think he will be leaving, and I think he'll be joining Real Madrid next summer. And it's annoying because it's the same old scenario with Trent, where we're thinking maybe he'll stay, maybe he won't, and in the end, whatever the gut instinct was, ends up being true. And I do think, there's been more signs that he'll stay he'll join Real Madrid rather than staying at Liverpool. There's been no indication that he'll stay. I think Fabrizio Romano tweeted today to suggest that Liverpool and Canate are far off to agreeing anything right now. So if that's the kind of stance or that's the kind of news we're hearing, that's not positive at all. So I'm concerned in terms of Ibu Canate. If we get Mark Gay, I think that's a good solid option for us. But I still feel like we need to sign another defender. Whether he stays or not, just because Joe Gomez is injury prone, unfortunately, and then you kind of want to find your successor as soon as possible. But it might just be where we sign Gay, keep Konate for another year, have Van Dijk and then Gomez to complete the full centre back options there. Then next year we address that situation and sign his replacement, just like we did with Frimpong. We signed Frimpong to replace Trent very, very quickly. So let's see. I hope I'm wrong because I really like Konate. I rate him as a player. He's one of the best centre backs in the world. And as a person, he's like a very down to earth, very humble guy. But of course, every person has their valuation of themselves in terms of what they bring to the table. And if he feels like he's not getting what he deserves, then he has every right to find a new club or try and discuss new terms with his current club. So at this stage, we don't really know what is going on, but hopefully we'll get some clarity in due course. And that is the last rumor, and that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to Jojo for your comment. Appreciate your engagement as always, guys. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. In terms of upcoming content, I will be doing another show tomorrow. The topic is regarding Harvey Elliott, but I have a feeling that we might get some news about Isak or Mateta. So if there's any further developments, then I'll definitely be doing an impromptu show around this time, around 11 p.m. UK time. If there's nothing circulating, then I'll do a show surrounding Harvey Elliott. Should we keep him or should we sell him? I'll also be doing a members video. It'll be my first one on Wednesday, and it will be well, this the topic or the scenario is that I have a selection of worst Liverpool signings, and I'm trying to fill the best possible, strongest lineup from a bad bunch, if that makes sense. So that's going to be an interesting concept that I'll have coming up this week. And then we'll do a transfer talk show, just running up all the rumors from the past few days and speaking about it in more quick fire fashion. So yeah, lots of content coming this way. So please make sure to hit that notification bell and also follow me on social media for all the latest updates. But that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care, stay safe, and I hope to speak with you all very, very soon. Goodbye.